Okay guys, what is up? I'm PDFTCG and today we're going to be going over all of the new cards from the new Fire and Ice starter deck from Wrath of Kors. Before I hop into this, I want to go over a couple things for the channel. One, I have two packages currently on the way to me. We have one coming from Monsters from the Other Realm. And we have one coming from the Game Crafter that's just one of my orders. We are expecting both of these within the next week, probably. So before this next video, those should be here, which means the next video will most likely be my next Saturday video. Rather, will most likely be a set 2 battle box unboxing that will be used to play a game of Sealed, or Draft if you prefer. I don't think it's technically a draft, but a game of Sealed with Pelipelagi. We're each going to crack, he's already cracked 2 battle boxes on his channel. I'm going to crack two battle boxes, and then we're going to make a deck out of them and play over Tabletop Simulator. That's the plan, at least. And then I'll also be doing an unboxing of Monsters from the Other Realm, followed by a review after I've had a little while to play around with the cards. Yeah, with all of that said, we can go ahead and hop into the video here. Okay, now obviously I did have to pull these cards directly from the video, so some of these have his finger in them and stuff like that. You know, we did our best, but starting off, we have the Core of Flames. Whenever you play a red action response, battle, or unit, you may charge this core, and then with 4 charges you can deal 300 damage to the enemy core or any unit in play that is neither red or blue. So the obvious comparison here is between this and the Core of War from set 1, which has 100 less health. This says whenever you play a red, basically any red card, you'll charge it, and with 4 charges you can deal 300 anywhere you want except to a red or a blue. The other one says whenever you attack, you get a charge, and then with 10 charges you can do 500 anywhere. And it doesn't have, it's not situational. You can hit red and blue units with it. In general, I would probably... Well, this is obviously better in, like, mono red. Even then, unless you're playing some kind of weird mono red control thing, I think you're going to play the other one, just because generally mono red is going to be fairly aggressive and going to be attacking a good bit, I feel. The fact that it does 300 instead of 500 is rather noticeable. Particularly if you're using it as removal. I could see this charging a little bit faster, just because it takes less than half of the charges, although this is every time you play a unit, and not necessarily every time you play a unit, every time you play a red unit, which, again, you would probably be playing this in mono red. The other one charges every time you attack, and a lot of the time you're going to get more than one attack out of a unit. They're pretty close, and it depends on exactly what your deck is doing. This would be really good if I was running a red core in my Undying Campfire deck, because my Undying Campfire deck doesn't really utilize its core very well. It's just kind of there. So if I was running primarily red in that, this would be a really good option, because it would trigger every time I play it, instead of every time it gets killed, which hoping everything goes correctly in that deck, my units don't die. So this definitely has uses. In general, I would say that the Core of War, without having played with this, mind you, the Core of War seems a little bit better, but they're better in different situations. Oh, okay. Now that I've spent probably more time on that than I should have, the next two cards we're doing together, we have a Blaze Elemental and an Icy Elemental. So the Blaze Elemental is 2 red, the Icy Elemental is 2 blue. The Fire Elemental is 300 attack, 200 defense. The Icy Elemental is 200 attack, 300 defense. When the Blaze Elemental. Yeah, so the Blaze Elemental, if it's placed on a volcano, you have it says burrow it. I guess that's upside. It's not particularly notable upside. I don't think burrow is that great unless you can like the response card that burrows a unit can be useful. That's not a huge upside. It misses on a 1 or a 2, and it has just slightly below average stats. And then the Icy Elemental is pretty much the same thing. Stats are distributed a little bit differently. And on death, you get to look at the top card of your deck. That's generally not going to do anything. Just that. First of all, it's probably going to die. Either at the end of your turn or at the end of your opponent's turn. In both cases, you don't really care what the next card on your deck is, unless you have a shuffle effect, I guess. If you had something that you could, like, search your deck with, and then, shuffle your deck afterwards. In general, both of these are fairly lackluster. I would probably say the Blaze Elemental is slightly better, but neither one of them are really something you're going to be super excited to play with in, like, your constructed deck. So, as I stated in, like, my last review video, or whatever you want to call it, anything in Wrath of Kors that generates more elements or allows you to manipulate the elements that are being generated due to the way that creatures cost in this game is super duper good. And these allow you to get more, which not only makes, getting the right elements easier, it also speeds up your elements so you can get your bigger creatures out faster. This is pretty self-explanatory. Don't feel like I need to go into too much detail why this is good, but it is indeed good, and will probably make its way into several decks. Okay, so then we have 2 common equipments. We have the Ice Shield and the Flame Blade. The Flame Blade says unit gains plus 100 attack. If the equipped unit is red, it gains 200 attack instead. And the Icy Shield is the same thing with health in blue. So, both of these are just, they're not terribly great. Even compared with, like, the equipment from set 1, they're not really anything to talk about. They're okay. They're fine, and, as like a starter deck card, they're something you would play if you were drafting or something. They're fine, but they're not anything that, like, if you're sitting down, with a considerable number of cards and, making the best constructed deck you can, these probably aren't going to go into anything. They're okay. They're just alright. So, next we have Blast. Which, as best I can tell, is a strictly worse version of Flare. I'm kind of confused by this, because Flare does 200 damage anywhere, and cost 1, and is an action response, which means you can play it on your opponent's turn. And Blast is 2 cost, deals 200, can't be played on your opponent's turn. They're both commons. So I don't know if there's something I'm missing here. But this is not a very good card. I didn't think Flare was very good. Flare's like not terribly playable. Blast is a worse version, so probably not going to play this anywhere. I might take this in like a draft. Maybe. It wouldn't be a very high priority. Okay, so the next card we have up is Icy Encasement. Any one unit has 0 attack this battle. The obvious comparison to make here is between this and Blinding Dust. So ignoring the colors, well, not completely ignoring the colors, Blinding Dust is slightly easier to play because it is white or black on both of these, whereas this is 2 blue. They basically do the same thing. This one says the unit deals no damage. That one says, or rather, Blinding Dust says that this one does no damage, and then this one says it has 0 attack. So those might make a difference. The exact wording might make some difference in some situations. Generally, you're going to have the same outcome, though. Blinding Dust is slightly better in that you can play black or white for it. This is straight blue, however, it's a common, and Blinding Dust is an uncommon. So, yeah, that's about right. Blinding Dust, slightly better, slightly rarer. And this is a different color, so you might end up playing it. Just because you're not in the right colors for Blinding Dust. So, it's an alright card. So up next we have Rolling Fire and Chillin Ghost. I consider these to be, again, kind of counterparts to each other. So Rolling Fire is a red uncommon. I've already done both of these cards, but we'll go over them again real quick. So it is a 400/400 for 3, with the upside of when it dies, you do 300 damage to the enemy core. As I've said multiple times before, 400/400 is about what we're looking for with a 3-drop, and then it has upside. This is an above average card, I'd say. Not by much. It could probably make its way into some constructed decks, but it's not going to be, the best card ever. It's alright. It's better than a lot of the red cards we had in set 1. It could very easily make its way into some decks. Particularly if you can abuse the death, although I'm not sure you really can, because I think that I don't know if you can bring that back with Undying Tomb and reuse the effect. I'm not sure if that works or not. I'm not sure exactly when the death thing triggers, if that's as soon as its health hits 0, or if that's when it hits the graveyard, which I don't think it does with the tomb, so not positive on that one. But in general, I'd say it's a rather good card. Chillin Ghost, fairly similar. 3 cost, 400/400 with the upside of when it enters burrow any one unit that is currently in play. Generally, you're going to burrow your opponent's creature, and then you'll be able to swing in with your cards. This is fine. I'd put it at about the same level as the Rolling Fire. If you're playing blue in an aggressive deck, then you can swing in really easy. Overall, I'd say, again, just slightly above average. Our next card is the Golems Head. It is a 3-drop, 200/500, so it hits the stats the way we want it to. I've already done this card, but I'll go over it again. So on a 1 through a 3, it misses. A 4 to a 5 is a hit, and a 6 is a hit and draw card. So it has a lot of defense, and it lets you draw a card. So this is a really passive card. This is very different both from the Chillin Ghost and the Rolling Fire, as this is something that wants to sit on the field and just create a wall, potentially draw you a card or two, and then, you know, eventually get blown up. So this, it draws a card on a 6, which is kind of cool, I guess, but you can't really rely on that at all because it's a 1 in 6 chance. This will probably sit on the field for, you know, it'll probably be on the field for a couple battles, so it has a decent chance of at least replacing itself. However, it has a 50% chance of missing. I'm going to put this at probably like slightly below average, just because of the 50% chance to miss. If that was 1 through 2, I'd put it like at average. But with the 1 through 3 missing, I'm going to say this card's a little bit below average. So our next card is Frost Season. It's 3 blue, a rare, it's a wonder. All non-elemental and non-blue units in play lose 200 attack. So in this deck, that's going to be pretty much your opponent's creatures. You're going to want to play this primarily in either mono blue or elemental decks, obviously. It costs 3 blue, so even if you are playing it in elemental decks, it's probably going to be a blue-heavy elemental deck. The most obvious comparison to make it to here is the Oak of the Old, which says all of your units gain an extra 100 attack and 100 HP for 2 green and then a green or a blue, so 3 cost. Slightly easier to play, but not by much. So Frost Season makes your opponent lose 200 attack, and then Oak of the Old gives you 100 attack and 100 HP. Oak of the Old can be used in more decks, obviously, because it doesn't specify colors or types. I would say Frost Season is better in the blue or elemental decks, because 2 units in play lose 200 attack. That's super good against like swarmy things like Scrats and Krillizzy and stuff like that, because that can either put the damage at 0 or lower it to like 1 to 200, so that's pretty good. Even without that, you know, if your opponent has creatures that are hitting for 400, that cuts it in half. I'd say that this card is well above average. This is a rather good card that will probably make its way into, you know, a good number of like constructed decks. I think it's rather strong. Our next card is Wrath and Fury. I believe this is 3 red. One thing I would like to see, actually, just a note here, this card is a good example, is filling like the little diamonds with something like maybe a gray or a white when they're not in use, because it can be a little bit difficult to tell what is filled and what isn't. Like in this one, the red is obviously a lot darker in the first 3, but like if the third one just happened to fall on like a particularly dark part of the fire, this card could cost 2, and I would think it costs 3. But yeah, I would like to see these filled in with something. Anyway, onto the actual card. It's 3 to do 400 damage anywhere. This is certainly better than Blast, I'd say, even though you're getting less bang for your buck, just because you would rather play this than then play 2 blasts, even if, you know, the mana cost for the blast is cheaper. You're getting more out of the single card with this one. 400 will remove a decent amount of stuff. Even just in this deck alone, you saw that there were a good number of really solid 3-drop creatures that have 400 health. So this can kill a 3-drop creature for 3 mana. It's okay. I feel like burn spells in Wrath of Kors are a little bit underwhelming. But I'd say that this is okay. That this is a burn spell that's actually playable. Deal 400. I guess that's fairly comparable to Backstab, which kills a creature with 500 health. This deals 400 damage anywhere, so you're not dealing as much damage. If the you can't kill quite as big of a creature, but you can also smack your opponent's face with it, or you can deal some damage to a big creature and then finish it off with combat, something like that. So this is, I'll go ahead and say it's above average. I was giving it a hard time. This card is okay. Okay, so our next card is Box of Dispersal for 3. Enemy action battle response card has no effect. Put it to one side outside the game. You may pay its cost and play it as though it were your own hand when possible. This obviously has to compete with Duplication, which is 3 mana. A little bit harder to play, I'd say. And copy any action/battle card and choose new targets for your copy. So Box of Dispersal can only target your opponents, but if you use it on your opponents, it actually negates. So that's almost worth playing just by itself. 3 mana for a negate. Black has a 2-black negate that costs 500 health. So this is 3 mana, but doesn't cost the 500. I would say this would be playable just with the first bit of text here. The card has no effect. The issue is put it to one side outside of the game. You may pay its cost and play it as though it were in your hand. See, this doesn't say that if this works the way I think it does, you still have to pay those specific elements for it, which means that in a lot of cases you're not necessarily going to actually be able to play the card that you negated, which is probably good because this would need to cost at least like 4, I think, if you could play the card. But overall, I'd say this is an above average card. It's, I don't know if it's better than Black Magic. It's pretty close. It's pretty close. Depends on exactly what you're doing. Obviously, it's better if you can actually play the card. But as a negate, it's roughly as good as Black Magic, which is a pretty good card in my opinion. So, yeah, I'd say that this is definitely playable. Alright, and our next card is Fiery Mimic. Choose any one elemental unit in play, and then its attack and defense, or its attack and HP, excuse me, become that creature's attack and HP. His thumb is covering the hit and miss. I'm gonna assume that there's nothing special going on there. It's probably just like a 1 or a 2 is a miss, and then everything else is a hit. So with this, we're gonna want to hit something that's at least 4. I mean, if you can hit a big elemental, then this is pretty good. The issue is that I think the only cards you really want to hit with this are like the kind of boss creatures in the deck. So there's like 2... Ignore my phone. So there's like 2 like really good targets for this, and other than that, you're going to be getting less than average value out of this. In like a constructed deck, I could see this being really good. It just gives you like another big creature for 4, possibly saving you some elements that way, getting you, you know, a higher valued creature than you would normally get for 4. But in this deck, it's kind of hard to make it do that just because there's only 2 targets that really allow it to do that. So in the deck, I don't think it's that great, but in like an actual deck, it'd probably be above average. Our next card is Elemental Clash. So we got another burn card here. Deal 500 damage divided as you choose over any number of units and or cores. So for 4, we're doing 500 with upside because we can, you know, distribute it. So it's definitely better than Blast. So we're getting more damage per element than we are with Blast. It's slightly harder to play because it's red and blue. Wrath and Fury is 3 for 400 damage, and it's a little bit easier to play because it's just 3 red. Although I'd say 2 red, 2 blue is easier to play than 3 red in like a red-blue deck. But obviously there are fewer decks that can play a red-blue card than a strictly red card. Overall, I'd say it's pretty good. You can potentially get like 2 Krillisians with this or something. Yeah, I'd say that this is pretty good. Probably the best burn card in the deck so far. Just because you can divide up the damage, and it's a total of 500. It does cost 4 elements though, so it's a little bit pricey. But since it's so multi-purpose, you know, you can just hit the enemy core with it. You can, you know, zap a creature and put everything else to the enemy core. It has a lot of possibilities. I think it's rather good. Okay, and our next card is Lava Core Frost Elemental. This is one of the big creatures for the deck. It's 3 blue, 3 red. It's a rare. Having a bit of issue reading it. Static, reduce all red and blue damage dealt to this unit by 50% rounded to the nearest 100. Okay. Rounded to the... It doesn't say if you round up or down. I'm gonna assume that you would round... I don't know. I guess you would round up. Anyway, so misses on a 1. What is that? 2 through 3 is a hit. 2 through 4 is probably a hit there. And then 5 hit. All your blue units gain 100 HP. 6 and a hit. Red units gain 100. So it's 700, 600 for 6, which is okay considering it has multiple other things going on here. It's kind of hard to kill with red or blue cards. So this card is really good against, you know, itself. And then it has like these kind of buff effects for your red and your blue creatures. This is good in like red and blue decks that have lots of little creatures. You can buff them, you know, you have a chance of buffing them up. Overall, I'm going to say this is a slightly above average creature. If you're playing red and blue, you're probably going to play this. But it's not really a reason to play red-blue. It's just okay. Pretty solid, like, big, beefy creature. But nothing super incredible. Its ability is really situational. And then its die rolls are pretty good, but you obviously can't always rely on those, so. Our last card, this is the royalty rare for the deck. This is, in my opinion, probably the best card in the set. Maybe even the game. This card is ridiculous. So it's 7 cost, 800, which is, I think, about what you'd be looking for a royalty rare. That might be a little bit low on the stat side, but that's okay. You can pay 7 of any element, so it can go into any deck. And in my opinion, it will go into most decks, because it's just, it can go into any deck, and then it's better than most of the royalty rares right now. Enter, return up to 3 cards from your consume pile to your hand. So this card gives you back 3 cards just for playing it. If you get to play it multiple times, tremendous value, just tremendous value. Even if you only get to play it once, you're still getting back 3 cards, and you're dropping an 800. Just a super good late game card, refills your hand, and gives you like this gigantic beat stick. So on a 1, it misses and you draw a card. Okay, so it's a royalty rare that can miss, whatever, you get to draw a card. 2 through a 4 is a hit. A 5 is a hit. All of your units get 100 attack and HP this battle. So somewhat similar to the Lava Core Frost element. Just buffs all your creatures. And 6, hit, negate all damage dealt to this unit this turn. Pretty good. That would be before your opponent decided to where he wanted to put his damage, but obviously he would. There's a good chance he'd be trying to get rid of this thing, just because it's doing 800 damage a turn. That's pretty noticeable. But yeah, this thing I think is going to make its way into a lot of decks. Best card in the deck, best card that I've seen from set 2, and quite possibly the best card in the game that I've seen thus far. I'm going to say best creature in the game is probably a bit more fair. It's just super, you can put it in any deck, in whatever deck you put it in, it's probably going to do a good job. Only thing that this card might not get into is like a super aggressive deck, and even then you could like grab 3 burn spells from your discard and just like dome your opponent for another 1,000 damage to a score or something. So pretty good. That about wraps up all the cards from this starter deck. As always, thank you guys for watching. Like I said, we'll be doing more unboxing probably starting on Saturday. We might even do the monsters from the other realm before Saturday, but we're looking to do the battle boxes on Saturday, if nothing else. But yeah, thanks for watching, appreciate it, and have a nice day.